Anyway, those were the good old days. Analog equipment today is awful by comparison. Try plus 15 in a Manley tube preamp today. I ran across some in a gig I did about 10 years ago. Disappointing to the max, and with all due respect to Ivana, they came up with this fat tube sound thing. Plus 15 is just simply not enough if you're dealing with live sound and real microphones. But all the stuff we had, we were very concerned about headroom. That's been one of my crusades ever since I was old enough to push the start button on a tape machine. And you can't have enough headroom when you're doing live to two or live to anything with microphones and a tape machine. And the more headroom you can get, the better. And part of the issue was tape. Now, the nice thing about the red oxide, if you plot distortion versus level, it was a nice, gentle one of these things. And with the 456 running at 250 and the 226 running at 250, the distortion curve had a much sharper transition. And then the distortion went ballistic. So you have I guess for lack of a better term, a brick wall that you got to be careful you don't exceed. And the nice thing about analog tape, it was this great sponge, but you couldn't run 250 nanowebers operating level at that point. Our zero was 185 for years and years and years. And there's a little bit of hiss in the background. Well, so what? You know, it doesn't bother me in this room. And there was no EQ. There was no Dolby. Hadn't even invented Dolby yet at that point. You used to be able to get about 60 below operating level, which in our case was 185, and that was selected tubes. And I think we had to replace a whole bunch of precision resistors to get away from the carbon film. We went to wire wound, actually, because the metal film resistors hadn't been invented yet either at that point.
Were the original caps paper?
Yes, they were. They were wax impregnated paper. The dielectric was mica, and I can't think of what they called them. There was some special name, but they were radial leads, and about the same package as what came out. So and all the components in the 350s were on vector sockets, which stuck down below the tube base. So it was not too difficult to work on.
So they weren't tantalums?
Oh, no, God, tantalums are terrible. And they should never have ever shown up in audio gear. And a lot of companies, including Ampex, made the mistake of that one. And ceramics should never have shown up in audio gear, but they did.
Well, they were on every guitar tone pot you ever saw.
Well, okay, but that's an effect.
Were they polarized?
There were some electrolytics in the 10 or 20 mic range. Most of them were big chunk of bypasses, so the value didn't really matter as long as they were big, and the voltage rating was adequate. The inner workings of the 350 electronics ran at about 350 volts DC. So one kept one's hand in one pocket when working on those things.
So no regulators the way we know them today?
No. The supplies were unregulated. And they were somewhat twitchy about line voltage, because back then, when that machine was designed, 112 was about the going rate. And anymore, you're looking at like 100. I know here in the house it's 124 almost continuously. So we go through a lot of light bulbs. And I've squawked at the hydro, and they won't do anything about it. It's apparently right on the upper limit of what they're prepared to not have to mess with, which I guess I can understand. But